So I've started on the my own content thing, and that is I've started this model context protocol newsletter for developers.
Sweet.
And that is the thing that like I'm kind of like in terms of like like making content for like the purpose of eventually monetizing it is I've gotten really deep into like model context protocol and how it works and what it does. And I've built like a little MCP server. And so I'm really excited about MCP. I think MCP is very cool and I want developers to know it and understand it. And they're not paying attention yet. So that's why I started.
I'm not paying attention yet.
Well, I mean, I think some of them are, but you know what I mean? Like, it's the lot, like wider, right? Like people are, this is like starting to be like in the periphery of people's radars, but it's not really like, I think a lot of people don't have time, like devs that I know that like, you know, they're heads down day to day working. They don't really have time to like study this or go out and kind of find it. So I started with this little series of posts. I drop a new post every other Friday, and I made a little like subscription thing on App Protocol so you can subscribe. And then I'm trying to like figure out kind of what to do with that next. Like if I'm going to do like maybe some YouTube content or like something else, I don't know what, but like I'm building out my MCP educational series and hopefully going to do more with that eventually.
That's awesome. Okay. So two things. One, like I relate so much to the, like just needing to get back in the building. Like I had been managing for like strictly managing for 3 or 4 years and then kind of like doing managing and a little bit hands-on for 3 years before that. And just like getting my head up and being like, oh my gosh, the whole industry has just shifted. Like even forgetting about AI, right? Like, and then you layer just the speed of AI on top of that. I was talking with somebody yesterday and it was like, you kind of have, and I saw somebody post something similar on LinkedIn, but you just have these moments of where when there's really fast, like really big momentum somewhere, like you need to chase that. You need to be able to drop things that are moving slower and get on board with the things that are moving faster. Or in 2 years, you'll find yourself pretty far behind.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can make up that distance later, but it's a really exciting time to be alive, especially in the like generative AI space. All right. So I have like done as much MCP of like plugging in MCP tools, adding like into the prompts, like to the agent being like, use this tool. I know there's so much more to MCP because I've heard people say there's so much more to MCP, but that's like, let's assume that's it. Like, tell me why you're excited about it. Like beyond just tool calls, what is MCP? What does it do?
Yeah.
What's the future of it?
So the thing that I think is so exciting about MCP is the word composable, because we use this word when we're talking about things like Docker containers or NPM packages, and MCP making prompts, resources, and tools composable is, I think, the thing that kind of like gets it to click for other developers, right? Is because if you think of an MCP like a server as like a package, as opposed to, you know, just like a server and application, you can start to immediately see how packages can be combined, nested, and built on top of each other. And I think that we are not quite there yet. Right now, when we're using an MCP server, we're probably just using a single MCP server and its tool set. But when we start chaining and combining these, I think that's where the real potential and power for MCP lies, is in its ability to give us those building blocks that we will then make all kinds of interesting things out of.
Would you say it's the, like what the infrastructure as code moment was for cloud, like MCP is for AI agents?
I think it's a little similar. I have my own personal things with infrastructure as code because I came up through DevOps and SRE.
Yeah, you were running the SRE team, yeah.
And we, you know, we love infrastructure as code as a concept, but in practice, its execution, I think, left some things to be desired. And I think that MCP has an opportunity. It's kind of even maybe bigger in the like scope of what it's going to affect and how it's going to impact. You know, I do think it's like a similar maybe, but a bigger concept.
Okay. Tell me more. Like, so you mentioned just kind of like the depth of like being able to nest MCP. What does that enable, or like what I get, or what kind of patterns? Like, I don't even know what the right question to ask is.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we think about it in terms of like APIs, right? You can have multiple levels to your APIs, and then you have, when you're interacting with an API, you're often not just interacting with a single API, right? You're going to have multiple different calls that are going out. This API gets this piece of information, and then you go out to the other API and get that, and then you combine them and do something with them. And I think that is where some of this like kind of power in model context protocol, and especially in like the composability lies, because MCP enables LLMs to interact with APIs because it gives them things like structured data, which they're not good at. They're really bad at structured data. Yeah. So by giving the LLM those kinds of things, that the structured data, the specific tools that can make specific API calls to interact with those APIs. I think that's how this kind of grows organically, is that we will want to create things that interact with multiple different components. An example that comes to my mind, because I've been working on some product sites and things like that, is, a tool or an app that can both go out to Amazon's API, get product images and product details, but then also use the LLM to do some maybe copy generation or some filtering on the images or something like that. And then I need to send that to if I'm using Webflow as an example for my CMS, I need to send that to that API to create the page, right? So those kinds of tasks where we have those use cases that have multiple interaction points, I think that's where MCP is going to eventually be kind of the glue that holds all of that plugs all of those things into each other.
So are you running agents in your workflows?
Here or there. I play around a lot with both Gemini and Claude are my two agents that I use the most. And I'm actually hosting an MCP server on Cloudflare for some public documentation, which is pretty. I wanted to make it easier for people who want to develop on the app protocol. So I created an MCP server that auto-rags the docs. And it takes multiple documentation sites. So it takes the wiki and the Blue Sky docs and the app proto docs, and it combines all of those into one big RAG index. And then I publish that MCP server on Cloudflare for free for anybody who wants to access it. And that allows you to add a search documentation tool to your agent. And then go from there, and you can, query the docs and ask it questions, and it has all of those documentation sites ingested. So multiple sites and all of the pages from them. So it's much more efficient than trying to do a URL search in your query or in your prompt. So yeah.
So that was one of the big, I had used MCP as tool calls and functionally as APIs, being able to connect with external services. But one of the big aha moments for me was the Mastra is a TypeScript agent framework, and they have their own documentation MCP tool. And that's just plugging that in, having it scoped just to their own documentation. So the agent wasn't making lots of calls back and forth. I've used Context 7 before, which is just kind of everything. And you have to do a few calls to get the agent to find the right documentation that it needs and parse through it. But just being able to narrow that down at the top of the funnel, just search the monster docs for workflows or something like that. It was oh wow, this is really awesome. And then the results from the coding agent were just way better. I could
significant.
Previously, you got to run kind of the higher end models, and with that, you can run some of the smaller open source models and get really good results.
RAG and retrieval augmented generation just so much improves the output that you get. I actually just wrote about that in my series about how I think one of the biggest issues that we face with AI is the hallucinations and its inaccuracies, and it's literally designed to just make up. And so
like that's what it is. Like
that's what it's doing. And I think people misinterpret the way, like I think people misunderstand pretty frequently how LLMs are actually working. I think they assume that it is regurgitating as opposed to generating, and it's generating. It's not regurgitating. It's not parroting anything back to you. And so, you know, using MCP to kind of add those guardrails to what the LLM comes up with, to feed it better context so that it determines like better results. I think that is how we eventually move away from the world where AI is just known to be wrong all the time.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think it has significant potential for kind of improving the way that we use it and the way that it works for us.
Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't realize that like AI was going to be such a hotly debated topic, especially among like software engineers, and they're going to be like, there's a lot of people that are kind of like pretty anti-AI.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's just like they haven't seen it or had the moment, or I don't know. Like, so what was your moment where you're like, this, oh my gosh, like this is not just a hallucination engine, it'll be really functional once you can get the architecture right?
Yeah, I don't know. You sent me that question of like, when was my aha moment? And I tried to think about this, and I don't think I had a like specific moment. I think I was a very gradual progression from, okay, AI is around. I know that this is, and I mean, as an engineer, we've been exposed to things like machine learning for a really long time. Like a decade. I was trained by AWS. Like they sent people out to our company and like gave us a little tutorial and like course in machine learning in like 2017. So like this is not a new concept for most of us as developers. But when we had a couple of years ago the ChatGPT explosion, and that becomes, you know, this huge, immediately used by everybody, it's replacing Google, it's taking over everything. I think like a lot of people, I had I should be getting into this. I should be learning about this. I should be paying more attention, but I'm not because I'm busy and I'm doing, you know, my day-to-day work stuff. And then at some point, it was really actually in the content generation for like affiliate marketing stuff that I was like, okay, I really need, there's no reason that I should be trying to do this all manually in 2024, 2025. Like we're past that. So how do I use it responsibly? How do I use it in a way that is ethical for my customer? So I'm not like, you know, I don't want to just make a bunch of AI slop and put that out there. That's not good for anybody. It's also not going to help sell products on my website. So how do I do it? And that was where I really started to, I got into Claude, and I started to like figure out like, okay, what is like the open source? What are the ethical ways that people are doing this? How do we do it efficiently from a, you know, compute and energy consumption standpoint? Like I really started to just very kind of slowly get into things, playing with Claude myself, using the tools. And then I started writing my own tools. And that is, I think that's where I actually started to get deep into it. And this was like probably about a year ago. So right before MCP was even a thing that existed. And I was, I was probably around like early part of last year, like spring of last year, I was playing with writing tools for Claude. And basically I was trying to take the things that I was asking Claude all the time. Can I automate this? Can I, you know, do a list of products instead of just asking it one-offs to give me, you know, Instagram blurbs for them or stuff like that, right? So it was really in building my own tools before MCP was a thing that I understood the pain points. And then when MCP, like when I started hearing about MCP, and it really wasn't like, it was probably, I would say like spring of this year, like March, April, May of this year, when I really started like hearing about it and going, wait a minute, I think this could be huge,
This is
because
it.
as somebody who had tried to make my own tools, that was a nightmare. It was awful. It was.
How were you even like doing that?
That's a great question. I'm trying to remember. I was just.
It doesn't matter.
I think I was
People are
just
like, "What did you do a year ago?" I'm like,
writing them in JSON and like importing them to Claude or something. Like it was, trying to get Claude to give me structured data was a huge pain point. Like just make 3 fields and just populate them was like almost impossible to get it to do consistently. And so I think as I started to, hear more and more about MCP and start to learn about that this year, that's when I was like, oh, this is awesome. And there was an article published by Cloudflare, I think it was around like April or May, that was 13 MCP servers you can use today. And they're all around automating Cloudflare tasks and, doing stuff on Cloudflare, which I think for me as a with my DevOps and SRE experience, those MCP servers made sense to me. I could immediately see, oh, this is why you would use this, and this is what this would do. And I think that was the thing that made me want to play with MCP for myself. And that was the thing that made me go, okay, I'm going to try to just make a documentation server as an experiment, because I want to play with this and I wanted to see what it's like. And also I'm playing with this other protocol. I would love to have this tool for myself.
Right.
And so that was really it was this slow progression of a lot of little steps. It wasn't like a single aha moment.
Okay. That's cool. And it's cool that you were prepped for MCP. Like when you saw it, you're like, that's the solution, because you already were familiar with the problem space.
Yeah, and it's really because I had already been working with that a little bit, because I had the experience of that pain that I was like, oh, this is actually going to solve this.
You have right now that you're still looking for a solution, or like maybe like it's on your backlog, like I'm going to go build it myself.
So I think it comes back to hallucinations and the idea of slop and things that are just kind of not quite right. And I think that is where I still run into things. Right now, I have ideas for new ones that I want to build, but I haven't actually started writing yet. So I'm sure I'll come up with new pain points when I actually get into the process of doing that. But I think right now it's about reducing hallucinations.
Okay. That's cool. Are there any opinions that you're against consensus on? Or you're like, this is kind of consensus, and I don't think that's correct?
I don't think so. I don't think so at this point. I know that there's a lot of security concerns. I think those are extremely valid. There's a lot of there's very much a kind of gold rush feel in the MCP space and in the MCP community right now. I think a lot of people are, oh my God, I'm going to make so much money on whatever their scheme is that they're going to try to do that. And it's exciting because it's great. We've got a lot of development. We've got a lot of energy. We've got a lot of new interesting things and ideas, but it also makes it very Wild West feeling, very kind of unsafe. And, you're kind of skeptical that it's going to actually turn into things that are effective and good. And we'll I think whether this is good for the world ultimately remains to be seen, right? We will look back on this in 10 or 15 years the same way we do the birth of social media, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's an exciting and interesting time, because it has that feeling when the internet was new, when social media was new, when I remember when NPM first became a thing, everybody wanted to make a package. Everybody wanted to be, oh, this is my NPM package that I made. And I feel like that's what we're seeing in MCP right now, is everybody wants to make MCP servers. And there are great listing places. There are great servers coming out. But is that, some of them are a little more half-baked than others. Some of them have even some of the, really significant, official ones, like GitHub's have major security holes and vulnerabilities. So I think
surface area.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's it's that excitement, right? It's this like nobody knows how this is all going to kind of shake out yet, and we're all in the space where we can just kind of do whatever we want, right? Like there's no standards, I guess, yet. There's the protocol, but we haven't figured out like what are best practices. We're just learning how to mitigate these security things and stuff like that. So I think it's exciting, but it's an interesting, like you said, it's an interesting time to be alive, right?
Very interesting. Hot takes on net gains on society. Like
this is where my controversial opinion is. So the whole thing about like, we're trying to, and I know they're like general intelligence is a big thing right now in tech. People are very excited about that. I actually have this, as I've been working with these agents, a lot of people use the comparison of like, you treat it like an intern, right? Like you don't give it permissions to things that you can give an intern permissions to. And it's kind of that. I think that as bad as the agents are, I actually don't think they're that much worse than most average people. Like, and I'm including myself in this average, right? Like the average person, if you ask them a question that they don't know, like they might try to answer it.
Really bad at self-awareness. Fairly bad.
Yeah, really bad at self-awareness. So just like a person, I actually think that they are more like us than we really kind of want to admit at this point.
100% agree. I've had this conversation with other people too. Yeah, like we are not as smart as we give ourselves credit for.
Exactly, it's that, right? And so it's like on one hand, it's like, okay, well, you can't trust this because it could be wrong, and it's like, well, yeah, but that's also true of everybody and everything that you read, right? Like you have to, I don't think there is a solution to that. I think that is just, we all just are trying to navigate the world, and we're all just going to keep doing that. And the agents are kind of doing that too. Like they're just going to respond to whatever we ask them. And just like if I asked somebody who didn't really know that answer and they just made something up, like it's on me if I believe them, right? We've gotten to the point where we can rely on, we think we can rely on things like Google, right? Like the idea of Google it is that you get a fact out of that. You get a definitive answer. And we don't get those with ChatGPT and with AI. And so, how do we move from that world where we've gotten used to those definitive answers? We've gotten used to relying. That's one of the things we use the internet for, right? It's not just communicating with each other, but it's get this access to information, this access to knowledge. And we've done an job of trying to actually like as a I don't know, society or something, right? Like if you take, I'm thinking of Reddit as an example, right? Where I remember when Reddit was brand new, and one of my friends was explaining to me this new site that they were so excited about, and they were explaining the upvote downvote system, and they were convincing me that this meant that we were now going to be able to like distill facts out of everything. And I was just looking at this person like, you don't think people are going to game that? You don't think they're going to upvote the stupidest, most ridiculous answer that is the least factually correct? And if we look at Reddit now, like Reddit has become a source of, if you are seeking information and you want to know the real answer, Reddit is one of the places you go. But you also know not to completely trust, right? You also know that the answer you're getting is like, well, it's Reddit, right? So it's
like we know, like pre-AI, we would still say you can't believe everything you read on the internet, right?
Exactly.
Like, so we're talking about degrees here, like
yeah. So I think it's that, we didn't have perfect systems for deciding what's definitive information, what's a fact. Like we don't agree on reality in a lot of ways. So
and
how
even
do
like
we agree on those things?
You think about work systems like daily stand-ups, code reviews, like all these things are built to manage imperfect humans. Like they're and the system's constantly changing because it's constantly like all the reorgs we went through because it's constantly like adapting to its external environment. So
I think that these agents are going to do the same thing. And I think we're going to get used to that in the same ways that we've gotten used to the idea that Reddit information is only as trustworthy as Reddit. You know what I mean? Like, I do think that we will just adapt, and that will just be, you know, the way that things work. Because as much as I know there are developers out there who are like, oh, this is, you know, it's garbage, it's going away. It is not going anywhere. It is absolutely changing our world and our economy, whether you want it to or not. So,
or even proven, right? Like,
not even a debate a year ago, it's absolutely not a debate now. And, you know, we see that from a lot of the tech companies. Like the big tech companies, they are embracing this. They are moving forward. They are building MCP servers. The number of Discords that I have joined because of getting into these model context protocol communities. And they're, you know, they're run by companies like Stripe and Cloudflare and, you know, Postman and like those, like they're all investing heavily into this. So that is, I think, you know, as I've seen kind of the progression over time, I think that was the other thing that made me go like, as soon as I started to really understand model context protocol, I was like, I want to be one of the experts in this. I want to be somebody who knows this from the beginning and has been following it along from the beginning, because in 5 years, I do not want to be playing catch up with how this protocol works and what's going on.
Cool. Well, where can people find you?
So I am online. I'm on Blue Sky at Imber, IMMBER.bsky.social. And I've got a website at coastweb.dev where you can read my MCP series and learn more about the random little projects that I'm working on.
Awesome. And sign up for your newsletter.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out. It was super cool to hear everything. I mean, this is just such a cool space to be a part of.
It really is. So it's really exciting.
I was always kind of bummed that I had missed like the early computing days, like the PC day, like the Apple PC days, and then cloud computing transition and like SaaS. Like I kind of got into software on the back end of the SaaS world coming up.
Right.
And then now it's like, oh, I didn't miss anything. This is going to dwarf all of this. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. Yeah, I also I feel like I came to tech later in my career, and I've been in tech now about 10 years. And yeah, it does feel like this is the beginning of things. We are at a new era